Hello, friends, and welcome to our first Coachella Valley Wildflower Festival Wildflower Wednesday. Tonight's infotainment is brought to you by the City of Palm Desert, the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, and Friends of the Desert Mountains. Our presenter is familiar with wildflower blooms as a professional and as a personal hobby. Tracy Albrecht, known as Tracker in classrooms and on the trail, has guided nature programs in the desert since 1985. As interpretive specialist for Bureau of Land Management, she connects people with natural and cultural resources on public lands, focusing on the Sand to Snow and Santa Rosa and San Jacinto Mountains national monuments. Together with Friends of the Desert Mountains, Tracy creates outdoor experiences of enrichment with people of all ages. Hey, Tracker, take it over.
Thanks, Karen. Great to be here. It's my favorite time of year now that springtime is emerging and flowers are starting to bloom. Lizards are coming out, insects are flying around, and birds are migrating through. So we're going to be taking the next 30 minutes to study about how to prepare for the wildflower season. And then I challenge anyone watching to use what they learned today and go out, schedule time, and explore the desert, starting in the low elevations, traveling up to higher elevations as the season moves on, so that you get the full benefit of the wildflower season. Cool. This year, it's 2021, and it's early March as we are filming this. So far, it seems like it's kind of a late year. Usually we have a few more annuals blooming by now, but just wait. I was out exploring this morning, and there's a lot of plants, annuals and perennials, just budding out. And with the warm temperatures of today and the upcoming week, we'll be seeing a lot more color. Start out, now that you've all prepared, I hope, with some a paper plate or a light colored plate, a tweezers, and a hand lens. Let's step back and review some good books that are nice to have. A general wildflower book might be something like this Golden Guide on Wildflowers. And this is for all of North America. Inside, it has different colors of flowers. And if you've moved to the California desert from another state, you might have a book like that. Also, General About Deserts covers all different types of life forms. It's made by Audubon Society. And it includes photos of wildflowers, different plant communities, reptiles, amphibians, insects, butterflies, spiders, mammals, and birds. So it's like a nice desert encyclopedia to have. And in the back is useful information on each species. And that's the Audubon Nature Guide to Deserts. Plants, this is a whole set called Flowers, Shrubs, and Trees of the Southwest, put out by Dodge and Janish. If you're up for a challenge, this is a book I use a lot. It takes a little work. It's called California Desert Wildflowers by Sia and Emil Moreheart. And it's got some photos in it, but it's mostly a dichotomous key, where you have to do a little work to earn your prize of identifying the flower. But it's a good tool because you get to know the plants really well. It really challenges your observation skills.
Well, these are awesome too, because a lot of times if you're out in a remote area, you might not have access to your phone for identifying certain things. So you can use a book, old school, analog.
This one isn't exactly about wildflowers, it's about desert plants. It's called Temelpa, which means of the earth, and it's written by Dr. Lowell Bean and Catherine Sobel. It's a wonderful resource about Native American uses of plants. And it's a full book, rich in information, even nutrition about desert plants used as food. My favorite, my quickest, easy go-to is this one because it's regional for the Coachella Valley, written by John Stewart, and it's called Colorado Desert Wildflowers. And it's the Southern California region of the Sonoran Desert. And the book is arranged by color, starting with white, going to yellow, orange, and red. So you obviously know the color of your flower, and then you turn to that section. 1, 2, 3, you've got a good identification. And there's some nice information at the base of these pages as well. Colorado Desert Wildflowers by John Mark Stewart. All right, so that's another way to prepare for getting to know plants. We're going to talk now about flowers anatomy. We think of flowers as something beautiful. They smell good. They add amazing color to a desert that usually is different tones of greens and browns. But in springtime, when there's a lot of wildflowers, we have yellow, purple, orange, even blue. Besides giving us a lot of joy and inspiration, flowers are colorful and smell good because their job is not only to increase the quality of our life, but their main focus is to make a seed. And to do that, they need to exchange their DNA and have a seed to contribute to the next generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, the private life of flowers.
Yes. So flowers do have DNA just like animals do. In fact, the female part is called the ovary. So I'm going to draw right here a round circle that represents the ovary. And another female part of the flower is called the pistil. And that is a stem that comes up out of the ovary. And that's it for the female parts. The DNA is in the ovary. The pistil is just a structure to collect pollen. A male part without DNA is a tube or filament called a stamen, S-T-A-M-E-N. And as you may guess, the stamen holds sacs of pollen. The sacs are called anthers, and they carry pollen. And the goal of the flower is to get the pollen transferred down the pistil to the ovary, and then the ovary becomes a seed.
So there's both boy parts and girl parts on one flower?
Yes, sometimes. That's called a perfect flower. And knowing this basic information allows you to discover amazing relationships. Sometimes plants have the same boy and girl parts on the same flower. Sometimes they have it on different parts of the plant. And other plants, like this jojoba, has an entire plant is either male or female. For example, this one is a male. You can see some pollen on this plant, right?
Yeah.
And then here is the female, which is not quite ready. Neither is the pollen, but these are tiny little flowers. I've got a good one back here. I think I'll do that. They aren't conspicuous because they're not attracting a pollinator. They use wind for pollination. And then here's, let's see, here's last year's flower. You can see these flower brownish seed pods where they were successful in having flowers pollinated, and they make a great big seed, the jojoba seed. So there's, but they all have the male and female parts, the ovary and the pollen. Sometimes they're on the same flower, sometimes different parts of the plant, other times totally different plants. Only the pollen, let's say from this here, tuberosa, only pollen from tuberosa can pollinate the ovary of the tuberosa. Now, by looking at this plant, can you imagine who a pollinator might be? And I chose this first, Karen, because it's one of your favorite pollinators.
It's a hummingbird. Can they?
Right.
Doesn't it actually mean hummingbird or something?
Yes, In Spanish, chupar is to suck, and flora is, or rosa is generic. So here we have a little hummingbird, and it very conveniently can get its beak all the way down into the base of the flower, where there's not only red to attract the hummingbird, but nectar down there to reward it. And when it does, the pollen gets on the hummingbird's face, and as it goes flower to flower, tuberosa plant to tuberosa plant, it pollinates the other flowers. All right. So to attract the flower, to attract the pollinator, this is really all the flower needs to make a seed. The bee comes, collects the pollen in its legs, eventually bringing it to a honeycomb. By doing that, the pollen grains are disturbed and may go down into the pistil. So to attract these pollinators, the flower grows brightly colored petals that act like flags to attract the pollinators to the ovary, the pistil, and the stamens and the pollen. So different pollinators are attracted to different colors. There's quite a whole science to this. There's even petals that have landing strips for certain pollinators that our human eyes don't detect, but botanists and entomologists are learning that different insects see different spectrums on the UV scale, and that they have all kinds of ways that the pollinator is communicated to by the flower. Okay.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. Then one more part of the flower that's not really reproductive is a little capsule called the sepal. And that covers the bud before the flower blooms. And of course, the sepal grows a stem, leaves to make food, more of a stem, and roots. Some flowers invest in a long stem, so they grow tall to attract pollinators above the ground. Some other flowers just are really low on the ground. They all use a different economy of energy to invest in a strategic way to get their pollinator to the flower. Other pollinators might be butterflies. Butterflies have those long coiled tongues that get down to the bottom of a flower. They need sort of a landing strip on their flowers. So a flower like this might be nice. The butterfly could actually land on a flat surface to be able to steady itself to get the nectar. How about at nighttime? Flowers often bloom at night, like the Jimson weed, light colored flowers that resemble the moon, and they'll be visited by bats.
No way.
Bats and moths come out at night. So these flowers are designed to bloom at night.
And they're not toxic to them?
Oh, yeah, good point. The Jimson weed, yes, is toxic. It's poisonous. It likes disturbed soil, so it may be near your home. I don't have a specimen today. I haven't seen any. However, it's North America's biggest flower. It can be about this big. Right, and that's a perfect slide to go over the flower parts. Jimson weed, it's also called datura. It's also called loco weed. Very large flower, but this is a great representation of the flower parts. As you can see, the petals are white with a little purple, all connected. But inside there, there's one like a probe that sticks all the way out of the flower with a green background. That is the pistil. That's the female part. And that's designed to collect pollen. It works the pollen grain all the way down to the base of the flower, which is just off the screen. And that's where the ovary is. Oh. This species has white stamens and white anthers or white pollen. And they're all white to promote the fact that they're there. A little bit of moonlight will reflect off that. Moths and bats are the successful pollinator for this Jimson weed.
Wow.
They might bloom a couple nights, but they don't have a long lifespan as a flower. After they're pollinated, they create a large seed about almost the size of a golf ball that's brown with little spikes on it.
Yeah.
Remember, this is a poisonous plant. So
Yeah.
it's
But not to the animals, just to humans.
well, like if horses eat it, it's poisonous if they eat the leaves,
Oh,
but the pollen is not poisonous to
okay.
pollinators.
Cool. Good to know.
Okay, so you ready to do your own dissection? I picked a plant out of my yard. This is a bush mallow, and I'd like to start by just attacking the petals. Take your tweezers, whichever flower you have. Before you take the petals off, count them. Flowers also have sort of a formula of numbers of petals to stamens ratio. This one has 5 petals. So sort of the pretty part's gone, but now I've got the exciting part where it's got the male and female parts. For this bush mallow, the stamens and pollen are actually red, and the pistil is sticking out as the same color. So it doesn't really jump out, but it's just a little bit taller than the others. Down below, it's green. That's the sepal. I like to tear those off. And then inside the sepal, I can easily see the ovary. In this case, the ovary is green, and that's quite common on flowers. Okay, my next flower.
And is this the part that kind of puffs up once like makes the fruit or a seed?
Yeah, the ovary. In fact, I have some, I didn't set you, I had some common fruit available. Here's an apple, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the apple was connected to the tree. Here's the inside. These are the seeds. This is the old ovary, formerly ovary. And then back on this side, you can see these little, there's a pistil sticking out and a sepal.
Wow. Now I'm going to never look at fruit the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, as we eat fruit, it's fun to think about which of the, are we eating seeds? Many times we are without knowing it. Here's a plant that is fairly common in the desert called Bladder Pod. It's named Bladder Pod because of the shape of its fruit. I like this one for the purpose of talking about wildflowers because here is a flower that's half flower, half seed. I'll hold my plate up behind it so that it's easier to see. You can see that yellow flower, and the ovary has grown out of the flower and it's dangling there looking kind of like a jalapeno.
Is it already pollinated?
Yeah, it's already been pollinated.
Okay.
Here's one before it was pollinated, right there. The leaves, the petals aren't very well developed. This is still a developing flower. Pollinated by bees.
Do bees like yellow?
They do. Let's say that you have done what I suggested, and I'd say put 3 days in the next month wildflower hunting. This time of year, if you live in the desert, you might have visitors, you might make doctor's appointments, other things, schedule your time, and before you know it, the peak of the season is gone. So I encourage people now, before it's too late, put going to see wildflowers on your calendar. And it's kind of hard to do that if you don't know exactly where you're going to go. But you can call the Friends of the Desert Mountains or call me at the Bureau of Land Management. And I'm happy to tell you some good places to go. So we're going to...
Insider knowledge right there. She's offering you insider knowledge on where to find the wildflowers, ladies and gentlemen.
A book bag here. And these are some typical things I would put in my book bag to take with me if I was, when I'm going to go out wildflower hunting. It's different than a hike and it's different than a road trip. It involves getting in and out of the car many times. It might involve getting on your hands and knees, crawling around. It might be a longer day than you think or than you expected, because you may find some really good places to see flowers. So you want to go out prepared because safety is most important, right?
Yes.
So first thing you want to bring is water. So bring lots of water, a couple of these, so that you're not taken by surprise. So not one water bottle that you might normally take, but at least two. Something else important, you can be guaranteed that it's going to be warm and sunny. So dress for it and bring a good sun hat, not just a baseball cap. You want to cover the back of your neck. You want to cover your ears. And a hat that's big like this can keep your whole body cool by shading your shoulders as well. Of course, you want to bring sunscreen. Best to put that on before you leave the house though, right? First aid kit, always good to have that. Make sure that it's got fresh supplies in it. I always suggest a bandana. Bandanas can be wet down to cool yourself off. They can be used around your neck, over your head. If you're kneeling on the ground to get a good flower picture, you can lay it down so you don't get gravel in your knees. All kinds of things, maybe at a lunch stop, you might want to sit on it or use it as a napkin. It's good to bring a map. You may end up driving farther than you think because you might see some flowers blooming along the road and it takes you farther than you originally planned. And of course, something to record your observations. It's always good to do that while they're fresh in your mind. And this is a good challenge to identify the flowers, and you can make a list of your day as the day progresses. Something you might not think about would be an umbrella. Now, it doesn't rain very often in the desert, so you may not even know where your umbrella is, but a black umbrella is good for a couple purposes with wildflowers. By opening it up and putting it as a background, you can create a very dramatic look for your photographs. Watch this flower as I see that there. See how that flower can photograph a little better with a black solid background. A black umbrella can help make your photos very dramatic with flower parts that normally might blend into the background. And a black umbrella also can be placed away from the flower you're photographing to block that little annoying wind that keeps your flowers moving and out of focus.
So true. Spoken like a true flower photographer.
If you don't have a black umbrella, those small black trays that come with microwave food can work nicely as well. In case you're out long, you want to bring a flashlight and always bring snacks as well as a meal. A little extra snacks in case you need it. Even the granola bars you've had in the cupboard for months taste delicious if you've overextended your trip. Other good things is a mirror, just in case you need to use it as a rescue attempt, and a whistle, which blowing 3 times is a sign of emergency instead of yelling. I'm not anticipating anything bad on your wildflower journey, but sometimes we make decisions that cause us to get in a little predicament where we just need a little help. All right, so you're ready to go. Now what you need is to know where to go. And there's a few places that are reliable in the Coachella Valley. Tramway Road is often beautiful with Encelia. That's this yellow daisy here that has, that hillside can have so many Encelia, the whole hillside is solid yellow. At our visitor center, the Randall Henderson Trail has a nice variety of habitat, which creates a variety of different kinds of flowers. But I would also encourage you to start using native plants in your yard. They will bloom according to the season, And there's a whole world out there of migrating insects, birds, moths, bats that will appreciate you using not just pretty plants, but native plants. And when they're in our yards and watered just a little bit extra, it goes a long way of having a great balance of saving water, having plants that last, and are good for wildlife as well. Well, that concludes our wildflower workshop today. You're welcome to keep in touch to find out some suggested places to go through the Friends of the Desert Mountains or the Bureau of Land Management. And we wish you great experiences out as you go out and explore this time of year looking for wildflowers.
Yay! Thank you, Tracy. That was fascinating beyond what I thought it would be. Like you say, I will never look at flowers the same way.